how, like what kind of events are we talking about?
No, I mean, we're talking about the names of the founders of the organization.
Okay.
I just said, make it bold. It should stand out. It should, leap out at somebody looking at the page.
Okay. In what moment do you use, for example, some of the organization here, they have received like proclamation, citation. Should that be mentioned in this?
Oh, yes, so that's actually the next bullet item over here. So was there another question here? Okay, so a list of recent accomplishments is very important. And now that could be an award, a citation, a proclamation, but not every organization does something that is of the nature that these things are awarded for. So it could be a successful program that you've run. It could be a measurable difference that you've made in the population that you've served. It could be another grant that you were recently awarded. As I said before, there's nothing that impresses a potential grantor than the fact that other organizations whose names they recognize have also seen fit to give you money. Now, you probably shouldn't necessarily mention the amount. I don't work against your interest to mention the amount. If you're applying for 20,000 grant from X and Y just gave you 5,000, then you don't want to say that. You can say Y gave me money. If they say Y gave you 5,000, then X will think, well, I'll also give them 5,000. If they're happy with 5,000, I'll also give them 5,000. So obviously, this again, as I said before, lots of common sense involved over here. In what to say and what not to say. But definitely, a list of recent accomplishments. Now, what I generally do, accomplishments, as I said, have fit into lots of different categories. If you're maintaining an up-to-date website, which is as I said, a good idea anyway, you want to have these things on your website. So, fine, somebody's already been tasked with tracking accomplishments and logging them and putting them on the website. So for you, writing the grant proposal, it may be as easy as going to the website, cutting and pasting, copying and pasting. But otherwise, and I understand that in many organizations there aren't resources available to be so rigorous about tracking accomplishments. But as they happen, you know about them. You just forget about them a week later because you're worried about the next problem on your desk. Just keep a log, keep a separate document, accomplishments. What happened, a date, who the person in the organization is who would have the most detail about it in case you need to dig up more detail. Now, when you're writing your grant proposal, you don't just dump your list in there, but you go through it. Which of these accomplishments are relevant to the particular donor to whom I'm approaching right now. If it's you were given a grant by recognizable name, that's pretty generally relevant. If you had success in a particular program, then that would be only relevant to another grantor who's interested in that kind of a program. Provide a moderate amount of detail. A ton of detail is not necessary. If it reaches the point that they're interested in giving you money, you'll have plenty of opportunity to probably sit down with them face to face, or at least on the phone, and explain to them in more detail, and do some bragging verbally where it's sometimes a little bit less obtrusive than actually doing a lot of bragging in writing. Now, so basically, what I'm just talking about over here, the mission statement, the accomplishments, all of them need to be tailored to, customized for, verbiage describing them in some detail to the particular grant application that you're fulfilling. Now, here we're getting to the crescendo of your grant request. This is the really important part. The money I want you to give me for this. And so you should have spent no more than probably about a page to a page and a half to get to that point. If you've got a lot of relevant accomplishments, maybe 2 pages. At the latest by page 3, and preferably some page on page 2, my grant request. So we said before, you've got to identify a specific project for which they're providing money. Describe that project and be passionate. I mean, you are involved in this because you have a passion for it. And so figure out a way to put that passion into words so that the person reading it actually feels the passion themselves. It may sound a little silly. A lot of people, you're talking one-on-one with somebody. They say, "What do you do?" "I work with this organization. We do really wonderful things." And you can make a passionate verbal statement. Why don't you try taping that once? Because a lot of people have a much easier time expressing themselves verbally than they do in writing. They get, sort of a writer's block kind of a syndrome kicks in. But what you want to communicate is the excitement, the emotion, the feeling. That comes out much better when you're talking. Once you've got it, in a recorded form, listen to it and transcribe it. And of course, you don't write the way you speak, and you don't give somebody a literal transcription of your passionate words. You've got to be somewhat more formal. You've got to be obviously much more grammatical in writing, something that's on the record than you are when you're speaking to somebody. But that can be edited. But very often, the passion hopefully will remain in what you've said. If you don't believe in it and you don't communicate to your potential donor that you really believe in it, they're not going to believe in it, and they're not going to spend any money on it. I mean, that's really rule one about getting people to provide funding for the things you do. And similarly, when you're saying, and our organization, really does a wonderful job doing this. Again, we're not knocking anyone else. We're just saying, well, your organization does a wonderful job. You do it, to a higher level of quality. You're much more meticulous and diligent about it. You address a different kind of population. Whatever it may be, you've got to be equally passionate about that, because they're going to be asking themselves two questions here: is this cause worthwhile funding? And if so, is this organization the best conduit for providing the funding for that cause? And you've got to convince them that the answer to both questions is yes. So here, as I said, you've got to be passionate. Now, this part of the proposal has to be as customized as possible. It goes without saying, to what the donor actually is interested in funding. But that said, if your organization has a fairly limited scope of things that they do, which is generally going to be the case, then your proposals can start evolving one from another. If you can easily repurpose the same proposal for lots of different organizations that are providing funding for the same kinds of things, and just change minor details along the way, like the numbers. This guy's maximum grant request is $20,000. The other guy's maximum is $50,000. We all have no problem spending $50,000 if it's available to us rather than $20,000. Obviously, in your enumeration of how the budget's going to be allocated, you're going to be much more ambitious about the size of the program if more funds are available. That has to be customized. One second, but the proposal itself, the words can be recycled once you're very comfortable that they're solid. Now, again, what are those? Belabor the obvious kind of things. Read it over very, very carefully. You don't want the name of another grantor in the proposal to the new grantor, because that's another one of those instant death kind of things. In a Word document, there's something called properties, document properties. Most people just completely ignore it, but I'm mentioning it now because if you're going to be recycling, a pre-existing proposal for somebody else, and you very carefully edited it, then you may have forgotten that the properties may have actually the name of the original beneficiary in them, and somebody else who takes a look at the document properties will see it in there, and it could be quite embarrassing. So look at the document properties. That's something that people often forget when they're working from a template or from a pre-existing grant, and also look at the headers and footers. People often forget to look at the headers and footers. If your header says, my proposal to Chase, and now you want to send it to Citibank, it shouldn't say anymore, my proposal to Chase. Bad move. Yes, sorry, question.
This one is like